try this. All right, so we're going to rotate. So there's going to be 3 of these that we got to learn. Okay. So I want to do this first before we even start working on like what a rotation is. All right, so if I draw an XY coordinates up here, plane, you guys remember which quadrant is 1? Top right. So what I want you to do is, you see I got that little quadrant on there? This might be good to put there or draw this someplace else. I think this is something you know, but I want to make sure we emphasize that you remember this. So this is quadrant 1. So in that quadrant, both X and Y are positive, aren't they? You guys with me on that? And then when we're numbering it, it goes 1 here, then goes to where? 2. So I know you guys don't have actual clocks very often, but is that clockwise or counterclockwise? Counterclockwise. So the rotations we do today are going to be counterclockwise. And if you're wondering why they do counterclockwise first, like that's the way we do it, it's because our coordinates go like that. Does that make sense? So if I get to quadrant 2, the X is negative, but the Y is positive, right? Then when I get to quadrant 3, now they're both negative. And then quadrant 4, the positive and a negative. Okay, everybody with me on that first? Just that you probably knew that, but just so we remember that. Okay, so quadrants go in order 1, 2, 3, 4, which is counterclockwise. So that's the way our rotations are going to be today. So that first blank up there says, how does it say it? Counterclockwise rotations around the origin. We'll learn 3 different rotation rules. All these rules go for counterclockwise, if you want to write that in there. Rotations. Okay, so next I'm going to tell you what rotations we're doing. Okay, so when we do these 3 rotations, we're only going to rotate 90, 180, or 270. Okay? Anybody want to take a guess why we don't do 360? Yeah, you'll be back where you started. So if you ever do rotate 360, you're right back where you started. Okay, so it's going to be 90, 180, 270. Okay, so let's write those in. So you see the very first one, angle of rotation. See where it has a little degree mark? Put 90 degrees in there. See where it says angle of rotation? So you go right below that. See where it's got a little degree? So that's a 90-degree rotation is what we're doing first. So let's look at A, what it's doing. So A is the 0.31, isn't it? What's A prime? Negative 1, 3. Okay, B is negative 3, 2, isn't it? B prime, negative 2, negative 3. Now, a couple things here to point out. So if we're going, let me ask you this first. So we rotated 90 degrees, right? So does it make sense to everybody if I rotate 90? If I'm in the first quadrant, I'm going to end up where? In the second. You guys with me on that? If I'm in the second, I would end up in the third. If I'm in the third, I end up in the fourth. Fourth, I end up here. Now, one thing that can be confusing, what if I was on this axis? Where do you think it would rotate 90? Yep, it'd be up on that axis, and I go to that one. Does that make sense? Okay. So on our points here, I forgot what they were. What was A? First one was a 3, 1. Okay. So it became negative 1, 3, didn't it? And then our other one was negative 3, 2. And it became negative 2, negative 3. Now, I just want to point this out. Okay. This is something that can help you if you're a visual person. Like you can memorize the rules, which is what I encourage everybody to do. But if you're a visual person, if you know that 3, 1 is in the first quadrant, where does my new point have to be? In the second quadrant. Does that make sense? If I know this one is in the second, when I rotate 90, it's got to be where? In the third. Okay? So what are my points doing here? They're changing places, aren't they? All right, so let's do that first. I'm going to write X. Y is what we start with, right? Just like we did the other day. Now, I'm not putting the plus or minus on there yet, but you guys agree that they're switching places for sure? Yes? Okay, is one of them changing signs? Mm-hmm. The 3 stays the same, doesn't it? Which is the X. What's the Y do, though? That's our rule, negative Y comma X. Now, obviously, remembering it will be the tough part, but does it make sense how we got it? Everybody good on that? Okay, now let's look at 180. Okay, so our next one down is we're rotating 180. Okay, we look at C. We start out again with 3, 1, don't we? What does it turn into? Negative 3, negative 1. D starts at negative 3, 2. What does it become? 3, negative 2. So on the 180, are our points changing places? Nope. But they are doing what? Changing signs. So that means I'm going to put negative X, comma, negative Y. Everybody with me so far? Now, if you're wondering, we're going to do the 3 rules, then we're going to go back and apply them, okay? To those 3 examples. Does that look familiar? It's the same thing as reflecting over what? Or the origin, actually. So we'll talk about this more later, but if I rotate 180, remember our capital R's rotate 180, or if I reflect over the origin, which we learned last time, they're the same thing. So if you think about it, hopefully this would make sense. If I'm right there, if I reflect over this, I'm down there, aren't I? Or if I go 180 degrees, I end up in the same spot. So the good news about today is reflecting over the origin and rotating 180 are what? The same. So you're only, there's not another rule in there. Does that make sense? The only ones that are going to be different is the 90 and then 270 when we do that one. Okay. All right, let's go down to the last one, 270. Okay, so on 270, do you guys agree that we got 3, 1 again, right? This time it becomes 1, negative 3, right? F, we start out with the same point we've been doing, negative 3, 2. It becomes 2, 3. What's it doing this time? One of them's changing signs, isn't it? Do you guys agree they change places again? Yep. Which one is the one that changes signs? It's the X this time. So it's Y, negative X is the rule for the 270. Yes, sir.
I don't know if I'm doing this correctly, but on the rule, open space, or are we supposed to put the rule right here rather than over here?
So the rule should be right in that little spot right next to the degree.
Okay.
You see what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah, so we're putting it right there. Yes. All right, so that's our 3 rules. Let's go back up to 90. All right, what point do we have? G is, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, negative 2. Everybody agree with that first? We're going to rotate at 90, so it becomes 2, 4. Everybody good on that? Okay, we go down to the next one, H. We are at negative 1, 4, aren't we? Negative 1, negative 4, sorry. We're going to rotate 180. So it's going to be 1, 4. And then if we go down to J, we're at 2, -1, right? It becomes -1, -2. So they're going to change places on the 270. The only rotation they stay the same is 180. Okay, so there is a pattern. I want to show you guys just so you see it. It might help you remember this better. But basically, every time we rotate 90 degrees, what do the letters do? Or the numbers? They change places. Now, stay with me for a second. Like on 90, they change places, don't they? So think about this for a second. Okay? If I make an A and a B, you guys with me? Like if A and B are my 2 points, if I rotate 90, they're going to change places, aren't they? So you could think of it like this. I'm going to put something else on there in just a second. Then when I go 180, what happens? See how they went another 90? You guys with me on that? So they change back. And then when they change another 90, they do what? They go back to BA. Now, if I made this little chart like this, you with me? In the first quadrant, both of these are what? Well, they're both positive, aren't they? Which one's negative here? The B, the X part. Which one's negative down here? Both. Which one's negative here? Are these 3 things our rules? I'm not using X and Y. I use the A and the B, but are they still the same rules? Negative YX, negative X, negative Y, Y, negative X. Does that make sense? That's another way you can remember that if you're a visual person by seeing that. And you can even put the XY there if you want to in the first one. That's another way to write your rules out if that helps you remember it. All right, let's turn the page. Okay, so we just talked about this. Make sure we understand it. So 90 degrees goes how many quadrants? 1. 180 goes 2. And then 270 goes 3. Okay, so what I need you to do is write down the 3 rules again, and then now apply those to the chart of examples, and then we'll go over that.